Good morning. Let's welcome to another daily devotion. Today we're doing a live, and I'm trying to get this thing set up, and I should have done it before I started the live camera. But I was nervous that I would do the live camera thing wrong, and so I started that first. So, oh man, messing everything up. Today, if you haven't read 2 Corinthians chapter 6 yet, you can take the time to do that. See if this video gets edited before I think it started listen, guys should not be trusted with YouTube channels. Well, anyway, welcome. Hey, I don't know who's watching, but welcome. Um, hopefully, you already did your reading. If you haven't yet, uh, we're in 2 Corinthians chapter 6 today. And if you haven't, we're going to, not if you haven't, sorry. We're going to just spend the whole morning in one verse. Normally, this is not the way we do it, but today I really wanted to just kind of be short and sweet to the point, and so we're going to take the time to digest one in particular, just one verse. So here we go. We're going to be in Second Corinthians chapter 6, verse 3, and it says this: "We are not giving anyone an occasion for offense, so that the ministry will not be blamed." So just real quick, if you can, in the comments section, if you can define the word offense. And so I did some work. I looked at what that represents, what it means, and I'll give you what I found here in a second. But for sure, I want to do a little bit. I think they call it playing devil's advocate, but I think that's a bad way of saying it, especially in this case, where what we want to do is look at things from every angle possible. And so one of the things that we want to look at or recognize is that Paul here is not forgetting about the reality that he's already told us that the gospel itself will be offensive. Calling people to righteousness who are living in a life of sin, which is all of us, right? Like that will be offensive. He just got done saying that there to those who are saved, that this is a pleasing aroma, but to those who are unsaved, that the gospel is it's like the stench of death, which is a nasty smell. You ever run down the road and you're walking on the side of the road and there's roadkill and it's stinky? Yeah, that's big. The gospel is the stench of death to them. And so Paul here is not talking about when you're preaching the truth or when you're living the truth or when it's the truth of the matter, when you're teaching the scriptures the way it was meant. If that's offensive, that's one thing. That's a separate thing. This is a different thing that he's talking about. We're not giving anyone an occasion for offense, so that the ministry will not be blamed. And you see, he goes on talking about all the things that they put up with, so that the gospel will be able to go forward. The ministry that he's talking about here is the ministry of reconciliation. In other words, helping people to have a relationship with God. creation, right? The creation story, it talks about how after Adam and Eve were created, that they walked with God somehow in the garden. And so they had a relationship with God. And then sin came into the world and jacked everything up. And now, through the gospel, we're reconciling everybody back to God. And so the ministry that he's talking about, the ministry that is being blamed, is not like he's not talking about like don't offend anybody so that Redeeming Life Fellowship uh, doesn't get blamed. He's not talking about us in terms of like our specific ministry. What he is talking about is the gospel. We don't want to malign the gospel because of our actions. And so, in a nutshell, you could say, like, I'll give you a simple example that I struggle with based on this verse. I like to tell jokes. I'm oftentimes incredibly unfunny. Um, Many of you, I'm sure, are well aware of my lack of funniness. Um, and sometimes when I'm out and I'm talking to people, I'll throw in like a joke here and there just to kind of gauge how well they think it's going. And sometimes I step over a line that I should. It's not on purpose. It's not. It's like it doesn't ever deal with like ethics or anything like that. But as far as um, like I'll make a Republican joke or a Democrat joke, and it's not meant to be like malicious or anything like that. But sometimes people are taken back by that, and I have to apologize. Um, and and you want to be genuine and you want to be sincere. We want to live in such a way so that we're not offending people, so that the gospel isn't aligned. If you live in a neighborhood where people care a lot about their lawn being mowed, keep your lawn mowed so that the gospel an offense, like isn't maligned because of that. That sounds silly, um, in theory, right? Like Paul talks about like the law of love. If your neighbors are being loving, they would be like, well, you can mow your yard if you want to. But we also recognize some of us live in neighborhoods where people do care about the way your yard looks. In fact, you might get what do they call it? A fine for not mowing your yard. And so, like, we know, like, if we want the gospel to not be maligned or blamed, according to my version, then what we need to do is keep our yard manicured. We want to do whatever we can in our life to live in such a way so that there's no reason uh, the liberty that I have should never get in the way of somebody being able to receive the gospel. Does that make sense? So, like, um, if you have to abstain from alcohol, not because you can't have it, but because maybe there's somebody that might see you with it, uh, you know, then do that. Don't do something that would cause the ministry to be blamed. Pay your bills. Pay your bills as best as you can on time, right? Sometimes that's really hard to do, and I get that. But like, you know, we need to do whatever we can to the best of our ability. And then when we mess up, when we do offend, one of the things that Jesus talks about is going to the people we've offended and seeking forgiveness, um, fixing that offense. That to me is more important um, than anybody is willing to ever really recognize. If you've offended somebody, one of the best ways to make sure that the ministry isn't blamed is by asking for forgiveness, which I know is actually like countercultural now. It's actually easier and probably more popular for you to just also be offended. Well, I'm offended that you're offended. Don't do that. Just be like, look, I'm really sorry. I should have done this a little differently, and the next time I will do my best to do that. I'll try not to do that anymore. So that's it for today. Um, keep the definitions coming. Definitions of offense. Also, maybe you have your own story. Maybe you have your own example of things you struggle with, trying not to offend people. Sometimes I have to be careful. I'm a big fan of John Wayne, and depending on where I'm at, some people don't like him at all. And so, you know, we have to be careful with the things that we have the freedom to do or watch, but we have to be careful that we're not blaming, right, the ministry. We're not creating an offense that will allow the ministry to be blamed. And so, um, keep your examples coming. We'd love to hear back from them. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm sorry that today's video is significantly more strange than normal. But if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to the channel, click the little bell, and you'll be notified whenever our videos come out, which is every single day. And then, if you would like to, you can support this channel by clicking the tax deductible link in the description below. Thank you so much for joining us today. Peace out, Girl Scouts.